Human wanted only a place to sleep. Alien girls had bigger plans. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Ethan Miller had been traveling for days, looking for a place to rest. His body ached from the long journey, his legs tired from walking through the rugged terrain of this unfamiliar world. The small outpost he had stumbled upon looked abandoned, but it had one thing he desperately needed, a place to sleep. He approached the building cautiously, still unsure of where he had landed. The air was crisp, and the wind whispered through the trees as if to warn him. But Ethan's exhaustion overpowered his sense of caution, and he entered the small structure. It was simple, a few benches, a fireplace, and some discarded equipment that looked like it hadn't been used in years. The smell of old wood and dust filled the air. As he dropped his bag to the floor, he stretched and sighed, feeling the weight of his long journey lifting for the first time in what seemed like forever. He didn't care about anything else at the moment, just sleep. He could deal with the rest later. But as he lay down on one of the benches, preparing to drift off into a deep slumber, he heard something. A soft rustling sound at the door. Ethan froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the knife strapped to his side. The door creaked open slowly, and in stepped two figures. They were tall, very tall. Their skin was a vibrant shade of green, their eyes glowing with a strange golden light. Ethan's heart skipped a beat, his muscles tensing. These were no ordinary beings. They were alien. The taller one stepped forward, her eyes locking onto Ethan's with a mix of curiosity and amusement. "Human," she said in a voice that was soft yet commanding. "We weren't expecting you." Ethan stood up quickly, instinctively putting distance between himself and the aliens. He didn't know who or what they were, but he knew they weren't here for a friendly chat. "I just need a place to sleep," he said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "I didn't mean to intrude." The alien woman studied him for a moment, her golden eyes narrowing slightly. Then she tilted her head, as if considering his words. "A place to sleep," she mused. "You found one, but we had different plans for you." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Something about her tone made his skin prickle, and the air around them seemed to grow thick with tension. He didn't know what she meant, but he wasn't about to stick around to find out. Before he could take another step, the second alien, shorter but no less intimidating, moved swiftly to block the exit. "You are a guest now," she said, her voice much colder than her companion's. "And you will stay with us." Ethan's mind raced. He was trapped, but as much as he wanted to fight, he knew that doing so would only make things worse. He had no idea what these creatures were capable of, and for all he knew, they could have powers far beyond anything he could imagine. The alien woman who had spoken first took a step closer to him, her eyes lingering on him with an intensity that made Ethan's heart race. "We're not here to harm you, human," she said, her voice softening slightly. "But we have plans. Bigger plans than just letting you sleep." Ethan swallowed hard, trying to steady his breath. "Plans?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The alien woman smiled, a slow, almost playful smile. "Yes," she replied, her golden eyes gleaming. "Bigger plans." Ethan had no idea what that meant, but he had a sinking feeling that his rest was going to be the least of his concerns from here on out. Ithra, the taller of the two aliens, took a step closer to Ethan, her eyes studying him with an intensity that made his heart race. Despite the strange, almost hypnotic glow of her golden eyes, Ethan couldn't help but feel a strange pull. It was as if her gaze alone could see through him, reading his every thought, and yet, he couldn't tear himself away. He took a deep breath, trying to remain calm, but the air in the room seemed charged with tension, and his every instinct told him to stay on guard. "You misunderstand," Ithra said, her voice smooth and confident. "We are not here to harm you. We simply want to understand you." Ethan swallowed hard, still unsure of how to react. "Understand me? I don't even understand what's happening right now." Ithra smiled slightly, almost amused. "You are a human, Ethan Miller, and we have been observing your kind for quite some time. We are curious." Ethan's brow furrowed. Curious about what? He asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. About how you think, how you feel, she replied softly, her voice carrying an undercurrent of something deeper, something he couldn't quite place. About your capacity for survival, for kindness, for loyalty. Ethan's mind raced. This was not what he had expected. He had merely wanted a place to rest, to sleep, and now he was caught in a strange, unsettling situation with these two alien women who seemed to know far too much about him. Lyra, the shorter alien, stepped forward then, her purple skin shimmering faintly in the low light. Her eyes, though equally mesmerizing, were softer, more welcoming than Ithra's. We don't mean to frighten you, Lyra said gently. But you are far more than we anticipated. Ethan couldn't help but feel a strange sense of vulnerability in her words. More than you anticipated? He repeated, his voice steady despite the unsettling feeling that was slowly creeping up his spine. What do you mean by that? Lyra hesitated for a moment, her eyes shifting towards Ithra, as if searching for approval. Then, with a small sigh, she continued, we've studied your species for many years, Ethan. You humans are unpredictable, yet resilient. You thrive in the most hostile environments. You bond with one another in ways we don't fully understand. Ethan took a cautious step back, his mind reeling. He had no idea what they were talking about, but it felt like he was on the verge of something much bigger than he had bargained for. I'm just a guy looking for a place to sleep, he muttered, his voice low and uncertain. I didn't sign up for this. Ithra's gaze softened, though her presence still felt overwhelming. We understand, she said, her tone sincere. But your presence here, on this planet, at this time, it is not a coincidence. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. What do you mean? He asked, his voice tight with suspicion. You are part of something much larger, something we have been waiting for, Ithra said, stepping even closer now, her voice taking on a more intimate, almost hypnotic tone. And you are not alone. Ethan's heart raced, his breath catching in his throat. The room seemed to close in on him, and for a moment, he wondered if he was making a terrible mistake by staying here. What do you want from me? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra smiled gently. Nothing, she said simply, except to learn, and perhaps to teach. Ethan didn't know what to say. His mind was spinning, filled with 1,000 questions, but the one thing he knew for sure was that this was only the beginning. Whatever these two aliens had in store for him, it was going to change everything. Ithra's presence loomed over Ethan as the silence stretched between them. Her golden eyes never left his, and there was a strange intensity in her gaze. It was as if she were reading him, trying to decipher something hidden deep inside. He stood there, unsure of what to make of her words. Part of something larger, he echoed, his mind racing to catch up with her cryptic statement. What do you mean by that? Ithra's expression softened, a faint smile tugging at her lips. You are not just a traveler, Ethan Miller, she said, her voice calm but charged with meaning. Your arrival here, on this world, at this moment, it was not random. It was meant to be. Ethan's mind was spinning. He was just a guy who had stumbled upon a strange planet looking for a place to sleep. How could his presence here be anything significant? I don't understand, he admitted, his voice tight with confusion. Lyra, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward, her movements fluid and graceful. Let me explain, she said, her voice soft but filled with a quiet wisdom. In our cultures, we believe that there are certain individuals, certain souls, who are destined to cross paths with us. Your arrival was foreseen. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to process her words. Was this some sort of elaborate game? So you're saying this is all fate? He asked, trying to make sense of the situation. That I was meant to come here. Fate, Ithra said, her tone almost amused, is a human concept. But yes, in a way. You are here for a reason, Ethan. Ethan didn't know how to respond. All he had wanted was a place to sleep, but now he found himself entangled in something far beyond his comprehension. He glanced around the dimly lit room, his thoughts a whirlwind. This was too much, too fast. I didn't ask for any of this, he muttered, more to himself than to them. I just needed somewhere to rest. Lyra's eyes softened with understanding, but Ithra's gaze remained sharp, unwavering. You may not have asked for it, she said, but you are here, and now you must face the truth of why you are here. Ethan felt a chill crawl up his spine. He had no idea what they were talking about, but one thing was clear. He wasn't going to get out of this unscathed. "What exactly do you want from me?" he asked, his voice steady despite the unease building in his chest. Ithra's smile returned, this time tinged with something more playful. "We want nothing from you, Ethan. Not yet, at least." She took a step closer, her golden eyes gleaming with an unreadable expression. "But we have much to teach you. Much for you to learn." Ethan swallowed hard. "Teach me," he repeated. "Teach me what?" Lyra's voice was gentle, almost soothing. "Teach you about us. About who we are. About why your presence here matters." Ethan's pulse quickened as the weight of her words sank in. He felt like he was on the edge of something huge, something that could change everything. But what could he learn from these alien women? What could they possibly want from him? As if sensing his uncertainty, Ithra placed a hand on his shoulder, the touch surprisingly warm. "All in good time," she said softly. "You will understand soon enough." Ethan stood frozen, caught between fear and curiosity. He didn't know what they were planning, but he was beginning to realize that he wasn't going to be able to walk away from this situation unscathed. Whatever it was they had in store for him, it was going to be a turning point, one way or another. Ithra and Lyra's presence felt heavier now, more palpable in the air between them and Ethan. He could feel their eyes on him, their curiosity, almost suffocating in its intensity. He shifted uneasily, his thoughts still racing, trying to understand what had just happened, what was happening now, and what they wanted from him. "You said you had plans for me," Ethan finally said, his voice steady despite the unease crawling up his spine. "But you still haven't explained what those plans are." Ithra took a slow step toward him, her golden eyes narrowing slightly as she regarded him. "All in good time, Ethan," she said, her voice soft but firm. "We cannot rush things. Understanding takes time. What we ask of you is not something that can be explained in a single moment." Ethan shook his head in frustration. "I'm not asking for an explanation of your whole life story. I just need to know what the hell is going on. You say I'm here for a reason, that I'm part of something big, but I don't even know where to start." Lyra, who had been silent for a while, stepped forward with a gentle smile, her purple eyes kind and patient. "You are a part of something much bigger than you know," she said softly, her voice almost comforting. "But first, you must understand who we are, where we come from, and why this moment matters." Ethan met her gaze, his frustration easing just a little. He wanted to trust them, but he wasn't sure how. The whole situation felt wrong, like he had stumbled into something he wasn't meant to be a part of. "I don't know who you are," he admitted. "I don't know where I am, and I definitely don't know what any of this means." Ithra's gaze softened slightly, her lips curving into a faint smile. "That's why we're here, Ethan," she said. "To help you understand. To show you what you cannot see for yourself." Ethan's mind was spinning, but he could feel something in their words, something that made him want to listen, to try and make sense of it all. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ithra's smile grew wider, and she stepped even closer to him, her golden eyes locking onto his. "For now, Ethan, all we want you to do is learn. Learn about us. Learn about what we are trying to accomplish here. But most importantly, learn about yourself." Ethan stared at her, trying to process her words, but they didn't make sense. "Learn about myself?" he repeated. "What do you mean by that?" "You will see," Ithra said with a slight nod, her tone patient but cryptic. "Everything will become clear when the time is right. For now, just follow us, and trust in the process." Ethan didn't know if he should trust them. He didn't know anything about these aliens, and they were asking him to trust them with something far bigger than he could comprehend. But in that moment, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was a turning point. Whatever was coming, whatever they wanted from him, it was going to change everything. He nodded slowly, his mind still reeling, but feeling a strange sense of resolve beginning to settle in his chest. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "I'll follow. But if this turns out to be some kind of trap," Ithra raised a hand, cutting him off. "You have our word, Ethan. We are not here to harm you. We are here to help you. And through that, help us all." Ethan wasn't sure what to make of that, but he had no choice but to follow. His journey had taken an unexpected turn, and whether he liked it or not, he was now a part of something far greater than he ever could have imagined. Ithra led the way through the dimly lit corridors, her tall frame moving with a grace that seemed effortless despite her intimidating stature. Ethan followed, still processing everything that had been said. He had agreed to follow them, but the sense of unease hadn't left him. They were heading deeper into the compound, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was all part of something much bigger, something that he wasn't yet fully aware of. Lyra walked beside him, her purple skin almost glowing in the low light. She glanced at him occasionally, her eyes soft, almost as if she were trying to reassure him. "You're doing well," she said gently, her voice calming. "This will make sense soon." Ethan wasn't sure if that was meant to comfort him or if it was just another piece of the mystery he was caught up in. He didn't feel like he was doing well. He felt lost. "I don't even know what's going on," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Why am I here? Why me?" Lyra's expression softened, and she slowed her pace slightly, so she was walking beside him. "We're not asking you to have all the answers right away," she said. "All we ask is that you keep an open mind. There are things about you, about humans, that we've been curious about for a long time, and we believe you can help us understand those things." Ethan frowned, still unsure. "Help you? How?" he asked, his voice skeptical. Lyra's eyes flickered to Ithra ahead of them. "In time, you'll see," she said quietly. "But first, you need to understand what we're trying to accomplish. This is not just about us. It's about everyone." Ethan wasn't sure what that meant, but he kept walking, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and questions. They finally reached a large door at the end of the hall, its surface smooth and metallic. Ithra stopped in front of it, her hand resting lightly on the door's edge. "This is where it begins," she said, turning to face Ethan. "The answers you seek are beyond this door. But be prepared. What you learn may change everything you thought you knew." Ethan stood still for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. He had no idea what was behind the door, but he knew it was the next step in whatever this strange journey was. He nodded, his heart beating faster, uncertain but unable to back out now. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady despite the anxiety swirling inside him. Ithra smiled, a small, knowing smile, and opened the door. The room beyond was vast, filled with strange, glowing devices and unfamiliar technology. It looked nothing like anything Ethan had ever seen before. At the far end of the room stood a large console, and a holographic display flickered to life as they entered. "This is our mission," Ithra said, stepping toward the console. "We are trying to bridge the gap between our species, to understand each other, to learn from each other, and to build something greater." Ethan looked around, his eyes widening as the holographic display showed images of various planets, alien civilizations, and star maps. "This isn't just about us," Ithra continued. "It's about the future of all intelligent life in the galaxy. And we believe you, Ethan, are a key part of that future." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He had no idea what she was talking about, but the gravity of her words was clear. He had been thrust into something far bigger than himself. He felt the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. "So what now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ithra turned to him, her golden eyes piercing through him. "Now," she said softly, "you begin to understand. You begin to see what your role truly is." Ethan didn't know what that role was, but he was beginning to feel that he was standing at the precipice of something monumental. Whatever lay ahead, he knew it would change him forever. Ithra stood before the console, her golden eyes focused on the holographic display, while Lyra stepped back, giving Ethan a moment to process what he was seeing. The room felt vast, almost endless in its scale, the technology around them humming softly, as though alive with energy. Ethan's heart was still racing, his mind trying to make sense of the overwhelming amount of information coming at him. "This is a lot," Ethan said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't expect any of this. I don't even understand what any of this means." Ithra turned to face him, her expression thoughtful but not unkind. "You will, Ethan," she said, her voice steady. "In time, everything will fall into place. What we are showing you is just the beginning. You are a part of something far greater than you can yet comprehend." Lyra, who had been standing off to the side, stepped forward, her purple skin shimmering slightly in the light. "What Ithra means," she said gently, "is that you are the link we have been searching for. We've studied your kind, your species, for so long, but we could never quite understand you. your strengths, your weaknesses, your potential. Ethan's brow furrowed. I'm just a guy from Earth, he said, trying to process what she was saying. Why does that matter to you? Lyra smiled, the expression warm but tinged with something deeper, something more meaningful. Because your species, humans, are unlike any other we've encountered. You adapt quickly, you survive against all odds, and you have an innate ability to form connections. You have the power to change things, Ethan. The power to change the future. Ethan swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling into his chest. Change the future, he repeated. That sounds impossible. It's not impossible, Ithra interjected, her voice carrying a quiet confidence. But it will take time. It will take trust, and it will take understanding. That's why we brought you here. She gestured to the vast array of data projected before them. This is just one part of what we've been studying, what we've been preparing. We believe that humans hold the key to something that could unite many worlds. We believe you can help us bring it all together. Ethan looked at the display again, the images of different planets, star systems, and complex data swirling around. It was all too much to process in one go. But I don't have the answers, he said, his voice uncertain. I don't even know where to begin. Lyra stepped closer to him, her eyes soft. You don't need to have all the answers, Ethan, she said reassuringly. What you need is an open mind and a willingness to learn. Everything else will follow. Ithra nodded, her golden eyes gleaming with a mix of determination and something else, perhaps hope. Your journey is just beginning. We will guide you, but it is up to you to walk the path. Ethan felt a strange mix of fear and excitement flood through him. He had no idea what this journey would look like, but something deep inside him told him that it was important, far more important than anything he had ever faced. So, what do I do now? He asked, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside. Ithra's smile was small, but full of purpose. Now, she said, we begin the process. We will start with the basics. You will learn about us, about who we are, and about what we need from you. Ethan nodded slowly, unsure of what the future held, but unable to back away now. He was in this, for better or worse. And something told him that whatever came next, it would change everything. All right, he said, his voice firm. Let's start. Ithra and Lyra exchanged a look, and for a brief moment, Ethan saw something in their eyes, a shared understanding, a bond between them that he could barely begin to grasp. But it was enough to reassure him. Whatever this was, he wasn't alone. And perhaps, for the first time since landing on this strange world, he was beginning to understand that he had a role to play in something much larger than himself. Ithra led Ethan through the vast, sleek corridors, her pace steady and unhurried, as if the weight of everything they were about to reveal didn't faze her. But her gaze remained intense. You will see in time, she said, her voice almost soothing. For now, trust that you are here because you can help us. You will learn, just as we have learned from you. Lyra stepped forward, her expression more approachable, like she wanted to ease the tension Ethan was feeling. It's okay to be confused, she said, her voice warm. You don't have to understand it all at once. We're here to guide you. Ethan looked from Ithra to Lyra, his mind still racing, but something in their eyes made him feel that, maybe, just maybe, they weren't lying. That they were sincere. Still, the weight of the unknown hung heavy in the air. All right, he said after a long pause, his voice steady despite the uncertainty inside him. I'll follow, but I need to know what happens next. Ithra smiled, a flicker of approval in her eyes. Now, we begin the next phase, she said. We show you what lies ahead, and you begin to understand your place in this. Lyra nodded in agreement. It's not easy, but we believe you can do it, she added softly. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Whatever this journey was, whatever role they believed he had no choice but to see it through. His mind was still clouded with questions, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't turning back. Let's do this, he said, his voice firmer now. I'm ready. Ithra and Lyra exchanged a glance, and in that moment, Ethan felt a shift. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about something larger than all of them, something that would take him places he couldn't yet fathom. And for the first time since landing here, he felt a small spark of hope, a flicker of belief that maybe, just maybe, he had a part to play in something greater. Ithra led Ethan into a new chamber, the air thicker with anticipation than it had been before. The room was unlike the others he had seen so far. Bigger, more open, with walls that shimmered as though made of liquid glass, casting reflections of everything within. The center of the room housed a large round table, surrounded by various technological devices that hummed with a soft energy. Lyra followed closely behind Ethan, her presence still gentle but no less strong. "This is where we begin," Ithra said, her voice carrying a weight that matched the room's grand design. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that everything had led to this moment. "Where we begin what?" he asked, his voice steady but still holding that underlying uncertainty. Ithra gestured for him to sit at the table. "Everything," she said, her golden eyes locking onto his. "The first step in understanding your place in all of this." Ethan hesitated but sat down, his hands resting on the cool surface of the table. "What exactly is all of this? I still don't understand." Lyra took a seat beside him, her eyes soft but intense. "You will," she said, her voice warm. "But first, you must understand why you were chosen. Why you are here." Ethan's brow furrowed. "I don't remember being chosen," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "I just needed a place to sleep." Ithra's gaze softened, but her expression remained resolute. "You didn't choose this path, but it has chosen you, and you are more than ready for it." She pressed a button on the table, and a holographic image appeared in front of Ethan. It was a map, but not of Earth. The stars and planets displayed were unfamiliar, and the patterns they formed were unlike any he had ever seen. "This," Ithra continued, "is what we have been studying. The galaxy, the different species, the connections that bind everything together." Ethan's eyes scanned the map, his mind racing. "I don't understand. How does this have anything to do with me?" Ithra's eyes never left him as she explained. "You, Ethan, are part of something bigger. You have the ability to connect these worlds, to see beyond the surface. What we need is someone who can bridge the gap between all of us, between your people and the others." Ethan leaned back in his seat, trying to process. "I'm just one person. I don't know how to connect planets or species. I barely understand what you're saying." Lyra smiled gently, her voice filled with understanding. "It's not about knowing everything right away. It's about the potential you carry, the way you can connect with others, the way you see things. We believe that's what will change everything." Ethan stared at the map in front of him, the different systems and planets spinning slowly. It all seemed so much bigger than him, so far out of his depth. "But how do I do this?" he asked. Ithra's smile was small but knowing. "You'll learn, Ethan. We'll teach you. But it starts with understanding the connections between everything." Lyra placed a hand gently on his arm, her touch surprisingly comforting. "We believe in you," she said softly, "and we know you can help us. The galaxy is waiting, and you are the key." Ethan took a deep breath, his mind still racing, but for the first time, he felt a flicker of purpose. It was all too much, too fast, but maybe, just maybe, he could make sense of it all. "All right," he said, his voice firming. "Let's do this." Ithra nodded, a glimmer of approval in her eyes. "Good. This is only the beginning, Ethan. The path ahead won't be easy, but it's one you must walk." Ethan looked back at the holographic map, the stars and planets seeming to call to him, and for the first time, he didn't feel so lost. Maybe, just maybe, he was where he was supposed to be. Ithra stepped away from the holographic display, her gaze never leaving Ethan as she waited for him to fully process the information. The weight of the galaxy, of all the interconnected lives and worlds, seemed to press in on him. He felt small, yet strangely significant, like the center of something much larger than himself. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, a man simply trying to get by in a world that often seemed indifferent. But now, standing in this vast, alien space, with Ithra and Lyra watching him, he felt a growing sense of responsibility, though the exact shape of that responsibility was still unclear. "You said the galaxy is waiting," Ethan said slowly, trying to grasp the enormity of it. "But I still don't understand why I'm the key. What do I have that you don't?" Ithra's gaze softened, and she crossed the room to stand beside him. "It's not about having something you don't. It's about perspective," she explained. "Humans have a unique ability to connect with others, to empathize, to build relationships across vast differences. That is your strength." Ethan shook his head, struggling to reconcile what he was hearing with the reality he knew. "But I'm just one person. How can I possibly be the key to all this?" You are more than just one person, Ethan, Lyra said, her voice warm. You are part of a larger force, one that can change the course of the future. You just need to realize that the potential is within you. It's not about having all the answers right away. It's about being open to learning, to seeing beyond what's in front of you. Ethan looked down at the holographic map once more. The stars, the planets, the connections, they seemed like a maze he could never navigate. But Lyra's words resonated with something deep inside him. Maybe he didn't need to have it all figured out right now. Maybe the first step was simply accepting the journey. So what do we do now? Ethan asked, his voice steady but tinged with a quiet uncertainty. Ithra smiled, her golden eyes gleaming with approval. Now we move forward, she said. Now you begin to learn, to understand what it means to bridge the gaps between species, between worlds. You will face challenges, no doubt, but each one will teach you something new. Lyra placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You don't have to do it alone, she added softly. We will be with you every step of the way. We'll guide you, help you make sense of it all. And you'll find that, in time, you will be able to guide others as well. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within him. For the first time since arriving on this strange planet, he felt like he might actually be able to make a difference. He didn't know how, and he didn't have all the answers, but he was starting to believe that he could play a part in something far larger than he had ever imagined. All right, he said, his voice firm with newfound determination. Let's do this. I'm ready. Ithra and Lyra exchanged a glance, their expressions reflecting a quiet sense of pride. They knew that this was the beginning of something monumental, not just for Ethan, but for the galaxy as a whole. And as they turned to move deeper into the compound, Ethan followed, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. The road ahead would not be easy, but he was no longer afraid to take that first step. The galaxy was waiting, and he was ready to find his place in it.